Good afternoon, everyone. I'm calling the meeting to order. This is the meeting of the San Francisco Bay Ferry. Melanie, would you do the roll call, please?
Vice Chair Moyer,
Here.
Director Alba,
Here.
Director Dew,
Here.
and Director Hannaberry.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
Flag
of the United States of America,
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terrific. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us in person and online today. I am sharing in place of Chair Wunderman, who had a conflict and couldn't be with us, but sends his best regards and asks us all to do well and behave well, and importantly, do the best business we can. So we are here to do our best job on his behalf. And with that, the meeting is being conducted, as I said, in person and by video conference. It's also being recorded. To reduce background noise, we ask that all video conference participants please be in listen-only mode, and then you will be taken off listen-only mode if you would like to speak. And please help us to know that you would like to speak by doing the raise hand function if you can. We do welcome and encourage comments from the public, and a public comment period will be set aside after the discussion period and will be accepted in person for those of you in the room and by the video conference as well. And as I said, video conference participants wishing to speak are requested to email your name and item number you would like to comment on to boardofdirectors@sanfranciscobayferry.com or raise your hand. So thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, I saw those. Great thumbs up. Thank you to whomever. So with that, I'm going to start with the report of the chair. In lieu of Jim's absence, I would get to have that role for myself. And I just want to say that had the great pleasure, actually, last month of being part of the commissioning ceremony for the MV Zolophus, if I could spit that out. It was a interesting weather day, but a great turnout nevertheless. I couldn't be prouder of the crew that day. They were so welcoming and efficient, and so hospitable at sharing even the sort of the back of house of the vessel with all of those of us who are just wandering around checking everything out. The vessel itself is beautiful, and really excited about that, and most excited that we have added a 19th vessel to our fleet. And the 20th vessel will no longer be a diesel vessel. So that's pretty amazing. So thank you to everybody who has been working for years and years and years on this effort. That was a great ceremony. I think it's in our executive director's report as well. But that's the main thing on my behalf. And then I just noticed all the wonderful events that have been happening, and it's Merry the Ferry month, and so I hope that everybody is having a wonderful time with that, and best wishes to everyone for the holidays. So that concludes my remarks, and with that, I will turn it over. Oops, ask you, Director Alba.
Thank you so much, Director Moyer. I'm going to keep it short. I just saw a post on LinkedIn just as I walked in here that Director Murphy and Chair Wunderman were up in Washington taking a look at the new electric ferry, and just seeing the first photos, it just hit me so hard how much work we have done in just a few years. We're coming up on 4 years when Director Murphy joined the organization, and at that point we hadn't even started talking about electrification. In 4 years, we've gone from no vision to beyond vision to planning to construction. And it's with so much pride that I'm sitting up here, and I'm humbled by the speed at which this agency is moving. So this is by far the most fulfilling role, public agency or civic role that I've filled in my entire life. So I am just so in awe with everything that you guys are doing and the speed at which you're moving. So thank you.
Well said, Director Alba. Thank you, Director Du.
Thank you, Vice Chair Moyer. I just wanted to share that the RFP for the City of Vallejo's update to their waterfront specific plan has gone out, and I think it may have already closed. And so it will be exciting for us to see how that develops, and we should be very involved in those conversations, making sure that we see transit-oriented development happening and in that vision baked in. So excited for that to come.
Director Moyer, I have a correction. I think we're at 5 years, not 4 years. Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you. That's important, a very important aspect for us to pay attention to, not just in Vallejo, but everywhere. But thank you for bringing that to our attention. And I just want to publicly, for those of you who don't know, congratulate Director Du for completing the Sacramento Marathon on Sunday. So little did you know that there are stars among us. So congratulations to you again. Director Hannaberry.
Nothing much to report, except to say I had a very nice ride over on the boat, and if that trip was indicative of how the rest of the fleet's doing, we're in pretty good shape. Thank you.
Great to hear. Thank you for sharing. All right, with that, we'll conclude the reports of directors, and we will turn it over to you, Director Murphy.
Thank you, Vice Chair Moyer. You have a number of reports in your agenda. Just a couple of things to call out. Number one, I think you have our annual ornament that is on the desk there. Director Du, you'll hopefully be happy that we're featuring the Mare Island and some Vallejo landmarks on that ornament. Always a fun thing to do, and Tom and his team do a great job putting that together every year. They've done a great job putting all of our holiday events together. I think this is the most that we've had going on in terms of holiday promotions and events. One of them, the Lighted Yacht Parade, is a long tradition that we've had at this agency, and really well attended. I think the tickets for the Lighted Yacht Parade sold out very quickly this year. As soon as we posted them, we get a lot of repeat riders on that at that event. This year we did have some an incident on the Lighted Yacht Parade service where the wake from the vessel may have damaged some property in the estuary, and we're working through that right now to investigate that incident, understand the causes and the reasons for it, and we'll have more to report to the board on that when that information is available, but wanted to flag that for your attention. Oh, we have an echo. And then thank you for bringing up the trip that we made yesterday to Bellingham, Washington, to put the first weld on the keel of the country's first high-speed battery electric ferry. That was a great event. The folks at All American Marine are clearly very excited about this. So were their workers. All of them were really enthusiastic to be working on this project. You can just tell. I told Chair Wonderman that I would make sure to mention that in his comments to the team at All American Marine, he talked about the need for us to advance Bay Area shipbuilding opportunities. He just wanted to make sure he kept his streak of 20 meetings alive, that he's been able to talk about that issue. So I would bring that up on his behalf. And then thank you for mentioning the time frame that we've been able to move this forward. Those were a part of my remarks to the team because I'm really proud of the work that our team here has done to advance this effort and this program so quickly, especially Tim and his team and our consultants at Aurora Marine Design who have been so instrumental. I mentioned Caltrain and just how long it took to electrify that commuter rail service, a vision for over 30 years, just finally now happening. And for us to be able to do this in just a few short years is, I agree, very impressive, something to be proud of. And you can tell that the workers at All American Marine are proud to be a part of this project too. I want to mention some good news on the grants front. We had the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Grant Program award announcement just happened recently. We had two new grant awards there. First is $7 million is our piece of a larger $45 million application that was submitted to advance affordable housing opportunities in the Seaplain Lagoon area, along with the electrification infrastructure that we'll need to operate our electric ferries to Seaplain Lagoon. So the $7 million is our portion of that and will be used for the landside electrification project when that is ready to go. And then another $7 million award from the same program will be added to the pot of funding that's available to operate the Treasure Island service, which is where that first battery electric ferry at All American Marine will operate. There's, I think, $40 million from the development agreement that is set aside in developer fees to be able to operate ferry service and other transit service around Treasure Island. And so this is added to that. We're up to a pretty good number. So it makes us feel very confident that we'll have the operating funds in place to be able to begin that service. And then there's, of course, a more permanent plan for dedicated ongoing operating subsidy that will fully support our needs for the Treasure Island ferry service. You have financial statements in your report along with legislative reports at the state and federal level. With that, I'll invite Gabe Chan to provide us with a ridership report.
Good afternoon, Board of Directors. Gabriel Chan, Transportation Planner here at SF Bay Ferry. Another good ridership month this November. Pleased to report that we had just over 215,000 boardings. Compared to the same month in 2019, we're at about 91% of pre-pandemic ridership, and year over year, we're up 17%. So this was largely driven by our commute numbers, which have been especially strong for the season. Weekend ridership and non-commute passenger counts during the Thanksgiving week were also very strong. And we saw the best day since August on the Oakland Alameda Water Shuttle due to the Jack London Square Christmas tree lighting, which happened on November 28th. So an exciting time for our water shuttle service as well. Looking at some of the other regional operators, BART is still registering at about 50% of pre-pandemic and Caltrain at about 62%. And so overall, a good report this month, and this is usually kind of the time we start to see a dip, but I think we're doing pretty well, all things considered. Happy to take any questions.
Questions from the board? Okay, we'll come back for public comment. Thank you.
Oh, I also forgot one thing. We launched the $1 youth ticket and $20 day pass program on November 1st, and so far we've seen just over 1,600 redemptions for the youth ticket and about 1,300 redemptions for the day pass. So,
And how does that compare to your expectations?
I'm not quite sure what the expectations were, but Tom, if you want to speak to that. It looks like we're doing well.
I took that to mean that was exceeding them. Yes, he says. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks, Gabe. Nothing to call out in the reliability report, but please let us know if you have any questions about that. We continue to have excellent reliability. Director Dew, I believe, asked for an update on the regional transit survey results, and so that's included in the packet as well. Let us know if you have any questions about that. Would be happy to answer those. If there aren't any further questions, that concludes the Executive Director's report.
Terrific. Thank you. Directors, any questions for Director Murphy?
Very quickly on that regional transit survey, it was interesting to see how San Francisco Bay Ferry compares to the overall transit in the region, but also how well it fits into the demographics of the entire region. So no no surprises. It was, I just appreciated seeing the data because it confirms everything that we were aware of. And then, yeah, it looks good. So thank you.
It might be a little early, but any intelligence yet on the Clipper card and the onboard payments? And
Yeah.
great press yesterday, by the way.
Yeah, it's, I mean, we're talking about ridership and fares and reliability and transit rider surveys. So that certainly plays into all of that. We don't have it listed for discussion, but anecdotally, I know from the reports from the Clipper team that I've seen come in over email that everything seems to be functioning the way that it should. There's lots of testing that's been happening that's been successful. By all accounts, a successful rollout so far. And I think we have just an opportunity to really benefit from this improvement because of the nature of our ridership, the recreational focus of our ridership, especially as it relates to tourists coming to the Bay Area that might want to find the most convenient way to pay for their fare. Clipper 2 certainly makes that available.
Yeah, long time coming, but really, really well, really important. And it was interesting. I don't know how much of the press you saw yesterday, but I happened to catch just some snippets, and it happened to feature the reporter was helping a rider who was trying to transit from one system to the ferry system, and I was like, wow, fantastic! Thank you for that spotlight. So well done. Did you want to add something?
I just realized that I tagged on my ATM card, but I didn't tag off on Caltrain just now, so I need to go. I need to go.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I'll be charged $30.
we'll get a max fare.
Uh-oh. All right. Great. Melanie, anybody signed up for public comment on the executive director's report?
Nobody has signed up to speak.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Director Du.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Moyer. I did see a notice yesterday from the city of Vallejo about a survey of how to make it easier to get to the Vallejo ferry. And I think that was with Gabe Chan. I think I saw his name on the response on there. So just curious about that.
Yeah, that's related to the accessibility study that we're doing for the Vallejo Ferry Terminal. So I think we will have a report on that when the results come in.
And then I just, so I clicked on it and I didn't see, I was in a rush, so totally could have been my fault overlooking it, but I didn't see where to actually input, I didn't see any questions or ways to input comments. So I don't know if that's from the city of Vallejo side of the equation. Maybe it needs to be made smoother or easier to respond to, but just.
Thank you for giving us a heads up. We'll look into that.
Great. Okay, so can we go on to the next item, which is our consent calendar? There's only one item on the consent calendar, and that is to approve the meeting minutes from November. Anybody want to take it off?
So moving.
All right, moving forward.
Second.
All right, there's a first and a second. Any public comment?
Nobody has signed up to speak.
Fantastic. Shall we go for the vote?
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Du,
Yes.
and Director Henneberry.
Aye.
The item passes.
Okay, so the moment we've all been waiting for, it's a packed house. Erin?
Okay.
Always amazes me that maybe one of the most complicated, important things we do.
Indeed. So today we are presenting most of the financial reports for fiscal year 2025. You'll see in your packet that the single audit, which represents the work on the federal money that we spend, has been delayed because the federal government didn't release the guidance yet on the audits, although they recently have. So that will be coming in the next 2 months. These reports, as prior years, were prepared by Mays and Associates, our auditor, our independent auditor, and Vicky Rodriguez should be online. So I'll ask her to weigh in towards the end if she's able. I also just want to recognize that it is a big undertaking, and this represents the work of not only the auditors, myself, but our excellent accountants, Sherry and Diana. And so I want to thank them for their help and everybody else who helped us with all the write-ups and explaining the numbers and everything we needed to do for the report. So just a reminder that these are different than the budget to actual reports that are cash basis reports that you see at budget time and in your monthly packet, right? Those are really just about cash in and out the door, whereas these reports take into account liabilities related to pensions or contracts that we have that, you know, we would need to pay even if the contracts were canceled, those types of things. So it uses generally accepted accounting principles, formats, and standards. And so it follows the same format every year, which is, you know, a little bit like putting a square peg into a round hole for government, but it's what everybody in the field uses and what we're required to use. So it's important to state at the beginning that the auditors issued an unmodified opinion. They did not find any material weaknesses, didn't recognize any difficulties that we had during the process, and we generally agreed together as a team on how to handle everything that we were evaluating during the report. And there was one new rule that we implemented during this time, which was to increase our liabilities related to compensated absences to take into account sick pay. Even though we don't pay out sick pay, there was a new rule implemented by the Government Accounting Standards Board that required us to increase our liability. It didn't have any real impact on our statements, but just to let you know, we're keeping up with all of those rules. And so the overview that's in your report, I'll just mention briefly that our net position, which is how much our assets exceeded our liabilities, was $513 million, which was 5% more than the prior year, which is mostly due to capital assets as we keep building and adding to the fleet and keeping up with our assets. So the capital assets alone were $573 million. That's the result of our expenses for the year, which were $38.5 million, as well as our construction in progress program, which is now $63.5 million. That's how much construction we have kind of between the beginning and the end of the projects that we've kicked off. Our operating revenue increased, as you know, last year from 13 million to 15 million due to our fare revenue, ridership increases in fare revenue as a result to the ridership. Our grant support, our operating support increased from 48 to 59 million. Some of that is due to just because operating costs increased, but some of that is also due to the building of the reserve last year. We brought in more STA revenue and put fare revenue in the reserve. So that just showed the operating support increasing for the year in order to increase that value. Our expenses for the year were 66.4 million, which was a $5.7 million increase or 9% over the prior year. If you include depreciation and the liabilities that we're supposed to record as part of these statements, the amount was $86 million. The statements include more than enough information that you would ever want on our retiree benefit assets and liabilities. So that includes CalPERS, and it shows that we contributed about $1 million to CalPERS last year for our future pension liabilities. It also shows that we're in a good net position as far as the WETA longevity plan, which is also considered a pension plan for employees who retire from WETA with 10 years of service. That plan is actually showing assets rather than any liability, so it's actually a little bit overfunded right now, which is perfectly good. And then finally, the packet includes the required statements for Measure B and Measure BB. Measure B has expired, and we just last year spent all of the remaining funds that we had related to the fund source. That we spent just a little under, I think, $20,000. And then for Measure BB, we spent $658,000 on Alameda related projects, mostly due to the early stages of electrification programs along the Alameda waterfront. So all of these reports will be available on our website as usual. And I'm here if you have any questions, but I also want to find out, is Vicky logged in? Can you see her? And maybe she would like to, our auditor. So I want to give Vicky a chance to say anything, our auditor from Mace.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, just wanted to confirm that, we did complete the audit, and we had no concerns, we had no issues, we did not detect any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies and have issued an unmodified opinion. So that's the highest level of assurance that we can give the authority. I also just wanted to thank Erin and Sherry for both being very prepared for the audit, being very responsive throughout the entire process. And we were able to get everything completed in a timely manner. And the only open item is the single audit piece, which we are actually currently starting on and should have that well before the deadline of March 31st. And then with that, I just wanted to see if the board or management had any questions for me.
Anybody from the board have a question? Well, I do. First of all, Vicki, thank you very much for being here with us today and for your work. My question for you is simply about the complexity of San Francisco Bay Ferry's finances and our audit relative to like transportation agencies or like clients that you have. How would you rate, or is it a relative complexity? So would you call it highly complex or low complexity? How would you characterize that?
I believe that all transits are pretty complex in terms of, you have all of these projects, capital and operating, but then you have so many different revenue sources to pull from. So the accounting over transit specifically is complex. I think I'm sure Erin can attest that I feel like they're constantly going through different audits, not just from us. We perform the financial statement audit, but they're also kind of constantly going through different audits from other agencies. And so I do find just transit accounting itself to be complex. In terms of how the authority, compares with others, I, this year I know that Erin and Sherry did work on a new chart of accounts, and so I think that actually cleared up a lot of the accounting, and so made the process very smooth. I think it's much more transparent or easier to review. So other than that, I would say that the authority does really well with the complexity, but overall transit in general is more complex than other types of governmental accounting agencies in my experience.
Great, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Erin, was there anything more you wanted to present?
No, that's it for me.
Great. Directors, any questions for Erin or Sherry or Vicki? So I have a few things I just want to highlight from the report. And so in no particular order, I'd say first and foremost, it was very readable. So thank you for that. 45 pages of readable versus non-readable is a big difference. So I really, I know that takes a ton of work. And so I want to commend Erin, Sherry, Vicki, the whole team for that. There are a couple of things that I think are really important to highlight. And one of those is that that all of WETA's business, all of SFA Ferry's business, don't tell Jim I screwed up there, has been transacted in accordance with all of the right authorities. And that's what we expect. That's what we owe to our constituency. But I want to make sure that we laud all of you for ensuring that that is the case. So thank you for making sure that that happens and sticking to the expectations and the governance that all of the various bodies that grant us money or loan us money expect of us. That takes a tremendous amount of work. It comes before the board in various fashions, but thank you all as a team for doing that. I also wanted to note that per the report, if I can find it, one second here, that there were 30,000 revenue hours, but traveled 527,000 miles. So 500 million miles is something to really wrap your brain around. And so that was just jumped out at me in a very positive way. And I really, again, it's a lot of work that's going on here. And you all are making it look easy, which we appreciate. Keep it up, please. But I wanted to make sure that that got highlighted. And then I read something in the staff report that I've never read before, and I had to read it a couple times. So I was sure it was a typo, and then you spoke to it today as well, Aaron. So I think it deserves a little praise, which is that the SF Bay Ferry Pension Fund is fully funded. I have never in my life read in a public or a private audit that has said that. So kudos for making sure that we are being good stewards of all of our responsibilities to our employees as well as to our patrons. So thank you very much. And I think that was all that I wanted to pull out. I didn't have any other issues, but it sounds like Director Du has something to say.
Oh, just on that note, I wanted to also comment on that. I also had to read that a few times. Wait, our OPEB is an asset right now? That is incredible. So kudos for sure on that. That was exciting.
I just want to recognize the leadership that came before us. They set up those trust funds before I arrived and did a good job of getting that started. So I was really, it made my job a lot easier to just keep funding it and to put the right amounts in to keep it going. But yeah, it's a nice thing to brag about.
And it sure is. The last thing, of course, that jumped out at me as it always does is how critically important the RM3 and other grant monies we have is to our ability to be successful and to run this program as a first-in-class program. And so it always very, very grateful to the Bay Area community for their generosity and even those that don't have the pleasure of riding the ferry on a regular basis or appreciate that. And it's always really well documented in the audit how significant that is. So to all of you out there listening, thank you very much for your support. And with that, is there any public comment?
Nobody has signed up to speak.
Okay, any of our virtual participants want to speak that hasn't raised a hand or shouted out to Melanie? I'm going to go with seeing none. Any of my fellow colleagues want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the item.
Second.
Great. Melanie?
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Du,
Yes.
and Director Henneberry.
Aye.
The item passes.
All right. So thank you again. It was tremendous work. And sorry, we couldn't have as much discussion on it as probably as there was the work that went into it, but that's a sign of the success of the work. So thank you. So our next item is item number 8, which is to approve contract award to Tritium Power Solutions, Inc. for procurement of 2 float-mounted charging systems.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Moyer, directors. Jan Ripka, Senior Project Manager with SF Bay Ferry. And I'm here to present the Float Mounting Charges System Procurement Award. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start out, what is the float mounted charging system and what were we seeking? This is to accompany the 150 passenger reef ferry vessels that are being built at All American Marine right now. This is the charging system targeted for those assets. So that's intended to be, and the 2 systems that we're seeking to procure today are going to get installed at Treasure Island and Mission Bay. I previously came to you and talked about the Universal Charging Float, which is our charging solution largely for the bigger 400 passenger vessels. This system is smaller at about 30% power output compared to the UCF. It is notably simpler to install. And unlike the UCF, it doesn't contain batteries inherent to the system. It is designed such that we could add batteries at a later date should they be needed. Our initial financial analysis showed that they'd be of limited savings to the operational cost at significant CapEx. So we are recommending move ahead with that at this time. The components are long lead time and they'll be installed under a separate contract. So We are looking to procure them now so we can get them out of the way and provide them as owner-furnished equipment on the install contract. The expected timeline for procurement's about a year once we put out a notice to proceed. Next slide, please. What did we actually ask for? So we simplified the system that we wanted down to we are going to give this much power input from the utility, and we need 1.5 megawatts is the max capacity power that we're going to be providing, and we want the correct voltages outputted to our vessels with the correct plug system that will be installed, and it needs to fit within the colored boxes that you see on the screen. So it's going to be mounted on top of the float with no planned installed systems below decks. So all mounted surface to simplify the installation, making it faster and easier to install. And it's designed, the procurement itself was designed to make it very simple. This is what we give you, and this is what we need back, designed to integrate with the system. I'll note now the last bullet of the top portion of the slide. The megawatt charging system is our connection standard for the boats. This is going to be the same plug system that will be on the universal charging floats. This one will have 2 cables per side. The universal charging float's going to have 4 to accommodate the larger boats. So same concept, just smaller system and all simpler to install. The megawatt charging system itself is the new equipment connection standard for high-speed direct current charging for vehicles in general. And it's going to be the new adopted standard for truck fleets and large train fleets. It's expected to be what the current high-speed Tesla plug, a CCS plug that you see. This is for larger assets. So that's what we're seeking to do. It's a new system, first put out in pilot programs last year. It's not fully standardized. It is going to be relatively novel. And so it is, it's not unique to us in any way. It's just early in the adoption of this process. What we didn't solicit for in this contract was the system installation itself. This is just the equipment. And this doesn't include other modifications that are going to have to happen on the float, namely an automated mooring line tensioning system, just a lot of words to say something that's going to hold the boat to the pier instead of the propellers, keeping pressure on the lines. And it's not including lighting and the power distribution on the float. That will all be subject to a different contract that will come to the board for approval for at a later date. Next slide, please. That's what we put out for, and this is what we got back. We received 4 proposals, one from ABB, Cavitec, Tritium Power Solutions, and Wärtsilä. And we evaluated those at the best value standard. So the intent is to get the most correct, technically suitable, and reliable system that we can at the best cost to match the technical requirements that we put out. So we evaluated against 3 separate criterias. The first being proposer's qualification and experience. That's at 30%. And that was really an evaluation to make sure that everybody who bid has the proper experience and background to work in vehicle charging systems. The second category was technical suitability. So how well does the solution that they provide match the install that we require? And how easy is it for us to install, and how quickly can we execute it? And then lastly, at 40% was the price of the procurement. Sure. As I said, we received 4 bids, all competitive, all deemed technically sufficient for the procurement, and they were all deemed to be highly qualified to provide the equipment that we're asking for. The proposal evaluation committee has selected Tritium as the most technically suitable, highly qualified, and cost-effective solution that we received. And so we're recommending award to Tritium. Next slide, please. So who is Tritium? We do have a member from Tritium here today, and he'll speak at the end of this presentation just to introduce himself. But as a quick intro from what I know of the company, they have over 10 years of experience providing rapid DC charging for vehicles, and they're an established provider with over 21,000 installations worldwide, 200 of which are marine installations. They're the provider for Aqua Superpower, which is the largest network of marine chargers currently deployed. You can see a picture in the lower right showing one of their charging towers. And they are working at scale, producing a large scale production of charging systems out of a US production facility in Tennessee. They're originally an Australian company with engineering services out of Australia. They meet US distribution standards. As you expect, if they're doing shoreside work, which they're doing a lot of, it matches standard US production requirements and US certification requirements. The backbone for their proposal is utilizing their, sure I've got the acronym right, their modular scalable charging platform. So shown in the upper part of the slide, you see three components. One is a rectifier cabinet, one is a power distribution cabinet controlling the DC power, and then the last is the actual dispenser, that triflex unit as it's labeled. This is the exact same system they're using for most of their shoreside work. So it is a standardized piece of equipment that they're delivering all over the place and building at scale. And we're benefiting from that experience and that production line capability. I'll note that the triflex model that's shown there shows just two cables. We'll be putting two on each side of the float, and they'll each have one MCS cable. This will be their first foray into the MCS system, but that's not abnormal. Of the four proposals we received, only one has actually delivered an MCS system, and it's just a very new standard that's being adopted. This is a direction that tritium would likely be going anyway, as it's going to be a new standard for larger power installations. Next slide, please. Not to bury the lead, obviously the price came in extremely beneficial to us from tritium. And so I wanted to address that first as we looked at what the proposals were offering. You can see here a breakdown of what our independent cost estimate was and the proposals costs from each one of the vendors. Tritium came in at 66, two-thirds less the cost of our independent cost estimate, and significant savings compared to the other proposers. The reasons for that are a few. Primarily, our independent cost estimate and each one of the systems from the other proposers are custom-built solutions, or were expected to be custom-built solutions with bespoke products and dedicated engineering specifically for this install. We benefit in that this particular charging system for the small ferry matches what tritium already produces in a marine capable environment and right off their production line, with the one exception of changing out one cable. So significant cost savings, as you can see there. And that benefit kind of trickles through. It also applies to supportability. But that's the primary reason for an improvement in costs. When you look at the landside charging market, tritium system is competitive with other producers of large-scale land-based vehicle charging systems. So it's not completely out of the ordinary. It's just not the custom solution that we had expected. So it's a nice benefit. I'll also note that tritium's parent company, Exacom, is one of the largest producers of charging componentry in the world, and they receive that stuff. It's all in-house. Their IP is all in-house, so they get significant improvements without having to deal with markup that the other vendors would have to deal as they pull together components from other vendors. Given all that, and despite the really low cost, we've determined that the price is fair and reasonable and does meet our requirements. Next slide, please. So our evaluation of the technical suitability and the vendor's experience and qualifications. Specifically, looking at their installation, not only was it cheaper, it's also the best technical solution for us in terms of simplified install. So I mentioned that it's those three primary components, in this case, doubled up. You can see that we have two sets of those cabinets on the aft end of the float. Those are all designed to be standalone with their own electric isolations and their own cooling systems, all built in ahead of time and part of the delivered system, mounted to a simple platform. So very easy to install and all self-sufficient. Further, easier to maintain because we don't have to take the entire system down. There's built-in redundancy within the system as it's being delivered. They originally designed their system to meet the Australian market, shoreside, which is, extreme weather temperatures, lots of dust, critters, all kinds of risks that other vendors didn't necessarily build to or design to in the shoreside market. And they specifically focused on water-cooled systems, which is something that we want from the marine side. So there's a nice dovetail between the Australian heavy dust market to the marine ingress market. And so it's just a nice matchup that happens to work extremely well, and it makes it a perfectly viable solution for installation in the marine sector. So we feel confident that this is built to withstand our requirements and will be the simplest for us to install and maintain. They have an established support model, detailed costs for service level agreements, extended warranties are all built into their system. They have currently 8 Bay Area certified maintainers, and they're scaling up over the next 6 months, I believe, at least 2 more. Their VP of service is located in California. They have a lot of presence here to help support us should we have issues. It comes with remote monitoring 24/7 and all the standard expectations we have to have a supportable and scalable system. We scored them highest for technical suitability. I'll note we did not score them highest for experience and qualifications, and that's simply because they haven't proven themselves in the ferry charging market. They're certainly in the marine market, and they're abundantly in the vehicle charging market on shore. The other vendors that proposed who have built custom solutions for us have proven systems in the ferry charging market or the marine sector. Regardless, we found all 4 vendors to be absolutely qualified and more than meeting the needs and qualifications that we had. Next slide. With that, I'd like to introduce Griffin Hewitt, who's the Director of Sales for North America for Tritium, and he just wanted to say a few words.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan. So Tritium, we opened our facility in Lebanon, Tennessee, under the Biden administration. This was meant to bridge the gap between Australia and US manufacturing. We provide over 250 jobs at the moment in Lebanon, Tennessee. It's a small town right outside of Nashville. This facility currently outputs our global footprint. So everything from Aqua Superpower to the shoreside land charging environment, everything will be coming out of this facility. That's exactly where this megawatt charging system will also be located. You can see in the top right picture, that's our end-of-line testing. So every unit comes off the line and goes through a series of tests, ensuring viability in the market. If it doesn't pass one of those tests, it doesn't get out the door. From that standpoint, we also have our Australian Research and Design Center. That has all of our highly accelerated life testing environments, as well as our thermal testing chambers and our UL certification chambers. We are one of the only charging OEMs to actually provide our own UL certification testing under accredited TÜV-SÜD applications as well. From the Aqua Superpower fleet deployment, we have over 200 chargers, much in the south coast of the UK, as well as Scandinavia. So it's a very large footprint. We're very excited to be partnering with WETA and Aurora Marine Design for this project.
With that, I'd like to thank Griffin for coming today, and certainly Aurora Marine Design, who helped us design the technical specification for this procurement and did much of our market research that showed there was viable solutions beyond what we previously identified. And with that, I'll hold for questions.
Terrific, Jan. Thank you. And thank you, Griffin. Appreciate you being here. Directors, questions or comments? Director Du?
Thank you, Vice Chair Moyer. I really appreciate the presentation, and I was quite impressed with the pricing. Obviously, that was incredible. And so maybe a little nervousness about that, just because it is so much more affordable, and the experience in this specific is maybe not as much as some of the other proponents, but clearly the price and the explanation gives me more confidence. So I appreciate that. One thing that I'm curious about, so the dispensing mechanism, it will be different though for us because it'll be on the floating charging station right away. No access on the land to, just because with the EV charging stations, I have a little PTSD from seeing those cable cords cut all the time in Vallejo. I don't know, like the downtown parking lots, those EV charging stations have never been able to operate because those cords are cut every single time they're replaced within 12 hours. I mean, it's quite depressing, actually, the millions of dollars that have gone into that. So, but that's not a concern here from what I am seeing, correct?
Correct. The charging dispenser is mounted at the end of the float.
Yeah.
So behind the locked doors at the end of the float. So somebody had to pretty much swim in to get to it. And we feel confident that that's pretty secure.
Okay.
Griffin can speak a little bit to what they're doing on the cable side.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at this as well.
So for current clients, primarily in the UK market as well, what we've started to deploy is an alert function that has real-time alerts to any cables being cut. We also are exploring protective shields across our cables to prevent the action of actually cutting those cables. So there's a variety of factors, including even die packs that we're exploring right now to prevent those cable cutting measures.
Might want to reach out to the city of Vallejo. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'd also note that the MCS cable itself is water cooled, so anybody cutting it would get a pretty shocking surprise. Close to a die pack.
Directors?
Thank you so much for sharing the additional details, Griffin. I was as shocked at the cost as Director Du, and just very excited about finding a more affordable solution, and also the more modular you go, the better, the higher or the lower the risk of things happening. So I really appreciate the hard work of finding tritium and for tritium for proposing. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Henneberry, anything from you?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, give me one
Okay.
second. Perfect, and I'm coming right
All
back.
right.
So quickly, from me, thank you. It was a really comprehensive report, and I really enjoyed seeing the slides with the pictures. That really helps explain what's happening. I'm very intrigued by the fact of the 24-hour virtual monitoring. So I assume that's going back to sort of a central command in Tennessee. Is that the case?
So it's not only Tennessee, it's Tennessee, the UK, and Australia. So we have
That's
365
Yeah.
day,
Mhm.
24/7 active monitoring. It's one of our differentiators in the market, I would say, for large scale deployments that need extreme amounts of uptime, right?
Yeah.
So anytime that something were to happen, we have somebody online that is actually actively watching those stations and being able to diagnose critical issues on the spot.
Yeah, thank you. And that would explain how you're able to kind of watch the cables. So then from there, is there a dispatch of local qualified technicians, or
Yeah.
what happens?
Absolutely. So one of the pieces of this is that we would look forward to train staff as well as providing our own certified technicians. But part of the reason of tritium being so prevalent in the market is actually creating jobs and creating job opportunities for more people to become certified under servicing the tritium units. And so that's an avenue that we're actively engaging in right now, where technicians, master electricians will send out their staff to get trained in our tritium facility to maintain those units.
And then what about components? Do you inventory any on the West Coast?
Yes, absolutely. So we have dispatches through our service agreements. We have vendors such as Owl, who has national presence, as well as In Charge, who's just down in Los Angeles. They will stock componentry to ensure a quick dispatch time.
So now I'm going to put you on the spot in
Yep.
case you didn't think you were. Where's our point of failure?
So our power modules are actually backed by a 10-year lifetime guarantee as well. We're the only ones in the industry to certify that. So the power modules are not the issue there. Now, when we look at cables, obviously there's cable cutting thefts, and that's a large proponent towards failures. But there's also some other smaller pieces on the PCBU side that can have that failure rating. But our power modules have a 0.2% annualized failure rating, and that's the reason why we're able to really gather that 10-year lifetime guarantee.
Okay, and that's encapsulated in your pricing.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jan, anything further?
I would just note that the RFP did include critical spares, so we will maintain some of
Thanks for that reminder.
within that acquisition.
Okay. Thank you. Director Henneberry, I think you had something you wanted to say.
So I agree with the rest of the, go ahead.
I just remembered public comment. My apologies.
Nobody has signed up to speak.
All right. Going, gone. Anybody on the call want to do public? Say anything? I'm seeing none. Director Henneberry.
Thank you. I agree with my fellow board members. That was an excellent presentation, and I move approval of the award of the contract with Tritium.
Second.
Okay, Vice Chair Moyer.
Yes.
Director Alba.
Yes.
Director Du.
Yes.
And Director Henneberry.
Aye.
The item passes.
Terrific. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so that brings us to item number 9, which is the South San Francisco Service Study update. Looking forward to this.
Mike, yeah. No.
Oh, God, first time, so. Good afternoon, Board of Directors. I'm Dori Funaki, and I am a transportation planner presenting on item 9, South San Francisco Service Update, alongside Gabe Chan. Next slide. To start with some context on the study, San Francisco Bay Ferry staff initiated this study in July 2025 to identify a preferred service and funding plan that ensures the financial feasibility of ferry service to South San Francisco. As noted in our May informational board item, since 2019, South San Francisco ferry service has had the lowest ridership out of all San Francisco Bay Ferry routes, accounting for only 4% of the system's ridership. Next slide. Throughout the year, staff has worked to create a collaborative process with identified stakeholders from government, business, and community sectors who have an interest in ferry service between the East Bay and Oyster Point, South San Francisco. So far, we've held 3 technical working group meetings with the partners shown on this slide. Next slide, please. Here, I will give a brief overview of the work staff has completed this calendar year, as well as planned efforts in this timeline. In July, we launched the study with a first working group meeting, followed by a second working group meeting in August, where we introduced several potential service options for the service. Following in September, we held public outreach to gather feedback, and in October, we evaluated comments heard during public outreach. Last month in November, we held our third working group meeting to summarize outreach and discuss a preferred concept of service. This month in December, we will be meeting with the working group that we outlined earlier to discuss a preferred concept for a 1-year trial service based on feedback heard this year so far. Next month in January, we hope to present this concept for a 1-year trial service to the board. And in February, finalize a preferred option for a 1-year trial for implementation during March's service change. Next slide, please. And now we'll go into an overview of our public outreach efforts so far. So in September, we went to the public to share the service concepts for South San Francisco. And during the month, SF Bay Ferry staff conducted ferry chats during the morning commutes, as well as hosted an in-person event at the South San Francisco Ferry Terminal and a virtual event held over Zoom. We also distributed a survey that received over 1,500 responses, as you can see on this slide. and launched a public-facing website for project updates and newsletter signups. Now I will turn it over to Gabe to conclude the study update.
Thanks, Dory. Next slide, please. So the South San Francisco Service Study Survey was released to the public from September 5th to October 8th, and we shared the survey via various channels, including display boards on the vessels, the project website, through the Technical Advisory Working Group members and their various networks. We shared it also on all of the SF Bay Ferry social media platforms, and then we did in-person tabling at the South City Terminal, as well as in-person flyer distribution and outreach on board the vessels. So the survey was catered towards both riders and non-riders. As you can see with the graphic on the right, out of the over 1,500 responses, about 80% of those were from current ferry riders on the South City route. About 13% were from non-ferry riders who live or who work in South San Francisco, and then the remaining 7% were non-ferry riders who don't work in South San Francisco but who live in San Mateo County. So out of those 1,500 responses, about 1,300 survey takers weighed in on the potential service and operational changes. And then the remainder were folks who we identified as not having a significant interest or stake in a service change. Next slide, please. So here we're going to review the route changes that we took before the public and the working group. So the first option was to remove the stop at Main Street, Alameda. And this would enhance the current service's efficiency by eliminating that stop and streamlining the service so it's only direct service between Oakland and South San Francisco. This would also open up the possibility for adding another trip in both the AM peak and the PM peak between the East Bay and South City. The second option was to restructure the service and make it a downtown San Francisco to South SF connector. This would potentially create new markets to open up the entire region to access a ferry service to South San Francisco via downtown. And then it also would provide residents in downtown San Francisco and adjacent communities an option to getting down into the peninsula via ferry. Next slide, please. Here's a review of some of the operational changes that we proposed to the public and the working group as well. This included number one, fare increases. So we would increase the fare of the South City route potentially to be equivalent to the Vallejo fare, and that would improve the fare box recovery ratio of the service. We also proposed potentially looking at vessel or operator changes to shift the burden of the operational cost to a different private operator. Then this would support the financial viability of the service, potentially using a different, smaller vessel. We looked at 4-day service, so eliminating either a Monday or a Friday day of service, and we would save money on fuel as well as labor. And then the last one was a partner subsidy, basically to pursue utilizing public or private subsidy to fill the funding shortfall on the South SF route to bring it up to par with the rest of the system. Next slide, please. So all of those route and operational change options we brought to the public. And here's kind of an overview of what we heard from folks both in person, on Zoom, through the survey, and with our correspondence with the employers. So there was a strong desire to maintain direct service between the East Bay and South City. A lot of folks also supported fare increases or a reduced schedule to help with the financial feasibility of the service. Completely eliminating the stop at Alameda Main Street was unpopular, particularly among the Alameda riders. And then replacing the current service with that downtown SF to South City connector was unpopular, especially among the Oakland riders. We also noted from the survey that a lot of folks who currently don't take the ferry and who drive to South San Francisco cited having free parking provided by their employer. And we think that that's a major driver as to why people are not using transit. And then lastly, of the San Mateo County residents who did respond to the survey, we saw that there was limited enthusiasm for a South City to SF ferry service. And then as you can see on the right, those are just some pictures of us talking to folks at the South City terminal. It was really a good turnout. I would say about over half of the people who are showing up there on their PM commute stop by to ask us questions, talk about the ferry, and let us know their thoughts. Next slide, please. So here, this is where we're going to discuss the preferred concept that we're proposing to move forward with for a one-year trial. So basically following the board's approval, we would implement a one-year trial on the South City route beginning in March 2026, and it would include the following operational parameters. So we would maintain stops at Alameda Main Street. We would adjust the Oakland Alameda Water Shuttle schedule to better align with South City ferry departures and arrivals. We would optimize the South City ferry schedule to accommodate the needs of Oyster Point employers and employees. And we would maintain the current fare rate in accordance with our San Francisco Bay Ferry fare policy, so that we can make sure that price is not a barrier for folks who want to take the ferry. We would also conduct South City route-specific marketing and promotion, including providing promotional kits and materials to employers so that they can disseminate it to their employees. And then we would also identify the amount of partner subsidy that's required to support the long-term financial sustainability of the ferry service. So with all of that, staff are in the process of developing specific goals and metrics that are tied to the financial sustainability of the service. If the service continues to underperform relative to the other routes in the system at the end of the trial in March of 2027, this would trigger either a local partner subsidy or substantial cost-saving measures, which may have negative impacts on the South City Ferry. And then following this meeting in January, we're planning to present the final detailed proposal, and that will also come after we meet with the working group later this month to bring our thoughts with the performance targets and metrics for the one-year trial period. And with that, that concludes our presentation. We're happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Dory. Thank you, Gabe. Directors?
Thank you so much for doing the study and for taking care of the current passengers. What is the ridership goal? What is the fare box revenue goal that you want to get to?
So in terms of the fare box, right now the South City service is at about 14 to 15% fare box recovery over the last year. The rest of the system is at about 28 to 29%. And so the goal is to basically get that fare box recovery up to par with the rest of the system, and any kind of partner subsidy, either from a private source or a public source, we would count that towards the fare box recovery calculation. So if we were to get, a partner subsidy that bridges that gap between that 14 and that 28, 29%, that would be sufficient.
Great. And I know how hard the Genentech and Oyster Point coalition teams are working to get the ridership up, and do they know what the ridership potential is? Like, are 5% of the Oakland Alameda employees currently on the ferry, or is it a higher number? Like, what is the ridership potential that we're looking for? I was also surprised to hear, like, the Oakland parking garage, I think, is free for San Francisco Bay Ferry riders. So that having free parking in Oyster Point is not, you get free parking in Oakland. If there are plenty of employees in Alameda, I'm just wondering if covering the cost of the parking in Alameda would be an option for the employers. And so do we know what the ridership potential actually is?
So we haven't specifically asked the employers what percentage of your employees are coming from XYZ communities in the East Bay. But that's something that we can follow up with them to get that
Yeah.
information. Yeah.
Yeah, I just there is so much potential. Just not having to be in your own car for that amount of travel across the bay down to South San Francisco, getting that time back. um, I would love to be on the ferry if I were in the East Bay, of course. But I think that just needs to continue to be part of the messaging and the benefits of being on the ferry.
Yeah, and we're trying to address that too with the employer promotional materials that we're going to be preparing as well during the trial period. So hopefully to meet people where they are at their work sites, to reach them, where, the employers have their ear kind of. So yeah,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for the report. I particularly liked the graphic. That's the timeline. I really liked that. It was very useful. So in the past, when I've spoken to writers from South City across the bay, their passion for it aligns with all the things Director Alba just said about getting out of your car and getting onto the bay as an alternative. And those folks that are at least that I've spoken to, that are writers, are very passionate about it. And I think we've talked about this before. The impression that I had just from working in and around that area was that it's sort of, under the radar screen, in the sense that the way the topography is, you come down to the terminal, there's series of very tall buildings that would obscure your view of the terminal, and it's quite a ways from the freeway to the terminal. So I noticed, I know that you mentioned working with the employers to get more words out, but did I miss anything as it respects working with the city of South San Francisco?
Yes, we're also working with the city of South San Francisco and the San Mateo Transportation Management Agency. But I think what we've heard the most is from the employers, and the South San Francisco ferry service is very one directional. So it's purely commuter based. There isn't that much ridership going in the opposite direction. So I think in terms of, the goals for improving ridership is understanding the work schedules of the employers. And so that's why the working group has been really helpful. And we've tried to kind of make it as collaborative as possible, because those are the riders who are utilizing the service right now. And in terms of where the ferry terminal is located in South San Francisco, you kind of have to pass the freeway. There's a BART stop, there's a Caltrain stop. So it's a lot of competition for users in the peninsula there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. Not to mention the lineup for Costco. So I appreciate the conversation very much. I know that this is something that is near and dear, as I said, to the users who have been very loyal to the system so far, and it's a really important part of the Bay for our outreach. What I'd love to see when you come back next month is a little bit, help me to understand a little bit more of what would success look like at the end of this 1-year pilot. I'm not clear on that. Didn't seem like, other than what you just articulated, Dory, there was significant change in what the pilot is going to do versus the status quo. So I'd like to really understand, as I think Director Alba was getting at, like what is success?
So out of the changes that we had brought to the public and during the outreach process, we really heard loud and clear that folks wanted to kind of maintain as much of the current service configuration as possible. And so that's kind of how we're approaching this 1-year trial, is to make some adjustments to the schedule, kind of optimize the times, see if that yields, or see how much ridership benefit that yields. And then at the end of the trial, if we haven't made up that ground, we're putting in, there has to be some kind of subsidy that comes from the employers or from a private or public source to kind of bridge that gap. And if that doesn't happen, then we're going to look at seriously making some bigger changes to the service to ensure the long-term financial health of it.
Great. And hopefully along that 1 year timeline, there'll be maybe some milestones or something so we don't go from, one extreme to the other and surprise the community. Okay. Anything else, directors? Melanie, anyone signed up for public comment?
Nobody has signed up to speak.
Anybody on video chat want to weigh in? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Isabel. Isabel gave a thumbs up.
I'd like to speak. I just couldn't find the hands up side in time.
Oh, okay. That would explain it. Please go ahead.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Hello all. Sorry I can't join you in person today. Isabel, member of the public and a former South City writer. I just first wanted to commend the good work done by the team conducting the outreach. I'm sure it was not an easy task to manage, especially given how stakes keeping a good commute is for all involved. I just wanted to reiterate as well that from my perspective, the loyalty of the Oakland City writers shouldn't be important to see that their voices will be heard. I think there's value in a regular and reliable service from Oakland to a non-San Francisco building destination, and experience the loyalty of the city, or the loyal writers of South City love promoting within their communities, which especially in East Bay, word of mouth is valuable. I think a clear goal of the service, if a clear goal of the service was communicated to the ridership, be it like financial goal or ridership goals, I do think that you could see writers or loyal writers as an asset in trying to meet those goals as well. And yeah, and just I appreciate the work done to listen to the ridership, and I look forward to seeing the conversation continue.
Terrific. Thank you. It's about words of wisdom. I think there are a few places where you cut out, but I think we got the gist of it. So thank you for being on today and for sharing your perspective and wisdom. Anyone else? All right. So with that, we'll move on to item 10, the 2050 business plan update. I think that's you, Mike.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Vice Chair Moyer. I think it's really fitting. The previous item and this item are kind of back to back. We've been, I think, really aggressive and successful as an agency in getting new services online, building new things, advancing our capital program. But I think both of these items demonstrate a lot of attention and commitment we have as a staff to making sure we're doing this in a financially sustainable way. So we're building success on the operating and capital side in a way that we can maintain over the long term. So with that, this item is an update on our business plan. This has been a multi-year project, and it's been a little while since we've been in front of you. And so as much of a plan, this project is somewhat of a process. And if you can go to the next slide, Melanie. Next slide. Thank you. And just to kind of situate you in terms of where we're at for this plan/process, in May 2024, the board adopted the 2050 service vision and expansion policy. So this included the map of where we hope to be and the types of services we hope to operate through 2050, as well as an expansion policy. One of the things we heard consistently from stakeholders and people interested in WETA San Francisco Bay Ferry service over the years is what does it take for my community or my organization to get service? And so the expansion plan has already paid dividends in the year and a half that we've had it in terms of the interactions we've had with partners, in terms of providing some transparency, providing a blueprint for how your community, your organization gets San Francisco Bay Ferry service. So in terms of the process part of this initiative, alongside the adoption of the service vision and expansion policy, we've got a list of the supportive policies that the business plan process and the stakeholder engagement that we've done through this plan has supported. So recent accomplishments were the adoption by the board of the FAIR policy and FAIR program, We had terminal access guidelines in 2024, as well as a sustainability policy. And then this process has really provided the credibility and institutional support we need to put our interests forward in the Plan Bay Area 2050 process, as well as recent legislation in SB 63 to provide additional funding for transit agencies in need of operating funds. So we're really happy with the way the project's unfolded to date and supporting those initiatives. In terms of the actual business plan, part of the business plan, that is forthcoming. And we're going to bring it forward to you eventually in 2 volumes. And so just wanted to preview a bit what those will look like. The first volume, it's in darker font here, which represents that we've made substantial progress on it. It's a little hard to see in the slide. The first volume is largely drafted. So this memorializes that 2050 service vision that you adopted in May of 2024. And then it speaks to the series of focus areas that we identified earlier in the process and some objectives and policies and identity that we have for San Francisco Bay Area in each of these focus areas. So we're bringing that forward to you as part of the business plan and then some implementation strategies. The area that we're really hard at work on right now, and that most of the update for this item will concern, is the second volume. These are the specifics in terms of the numbers, the funding, the cost that we have of delivering not only the operating program that we're projecting over the next approximately 10 years, but also the capital program. In support of both of those general plans, the operating and capital plan, within the last year, we've provided long-term outlooks on both the operating side, which characterized our version of the fiscal cliff that a lot of our related transit agencies are going through right now. Ours is not nearly as acute as what BART, AC Transit, Caltrain are facing, but we do have our own fiscal cliff years out, and initiatives like the previous item on the South San Francisco are always the types of things we're going to pursue to make sure that we're managing the resources where we have that fiscal cliff is not approaching faster than it needs to. On the capital side, last October, we brought a presentation to you that kind of characterized where we're at in terms of the capital funding and capital program. And a lot of that hinges and pivots on where we are with Regional Measure 3 capital funds. And so we previewed kind of where we're at in the context of making the really important decision to authorize the contract award for the 2 universal charging floats, and committed to come back to the board with input from the board business plan subcommittee concerning what the capital plan will look like that is ultimately input into the business plan. Next slide, please. And so this is really the last piece to completing the draft of the business plan. And so we want to give you an update on what we see as our path forward for this last important piece prior to getting back to work over the next couple months and completing the draft business plan. So a reminder in October, in terms of that long-term capital funding outlook, we brought forward 3 potential capital plan scenarios that could be directions we take in terms of completing the business plan. So we had a focus on a reef scenario, a modified reef program scenario, and a modified reef program plus expansion and enhancement scenario. Again, we characterized each of these scenarios during the October meeting and committed to working with the subcommittee, so Directors Vice Chair Moyer and Director Alba. So we've met with them in the last month to further vet these options and have settled on a preferred concept for going forward that I'll discuss in more detail. Next slide, please. So before getting to what we've settled on as the preferred concept, I just want to kind of walk through the why we're doing this. Why can't we have everything right away? Why can't we get to 2050 next year? And the reality is we face a lot of challenges and risk in terms of the funding, obviously, but there are other components of the capital program which represents challenges and risks as well. And I want to walk through some of those before we get to the concept that we're preferring or recommending. Next slide, please. So the first challenge is achieving this very ambitious 2050 vision. So this is a vision that the map obviously indicates the expansion ambitions of the agencies. of the agency. But there are two other E's that go alongside expansion. So we're very mindful of making sure that we invest in the existing services, that we continue to expand services on the existing routes that we operate to meet demand. And we're very aware of the need and the challenge of electrification of the system. So we think of enhancement, electrification, and expansion as our three E's. You could say a fourth E with emergency response as well. But the plan, the challenge of achieving the 2050 service vision is delivering on all three of those fronts. Next slide, please. Another challenge is really managing the resources we have available in the intervening years to make sure that we're making the right investments in the near term, medium term to ultimately get in 2050 to this more complete service vision that we have. And so the most important resource we have available to us in terms of supporting the capital program, whatever capital program we go forward with, are the regional Measure 3 capital funds that we have available. And so again, this was a really transformative development for our agency when the voters approved the regional Measure 3 measure. Not only did we get the additional operating funds that we needed to have to support enhanced and expanded service, but we received $300 million in funds that would be available to support the capital program. So to date, of that $300 million, we've allocated approximately just over $100 million of those funds, and there's a list of the specific projects that have received those funds. In the near term, either the end of this year or early next fiscal year, we do have an additional planned allocation for the Harbor Bay project. And I think the larger picture here, one of the really important stories to tell is that we've been, the board, the agency in general has been very successful in taking this allocation that we've made, this $100 million, approximately $100 million. We've been very successful in leveraging that investment to secure additional external funds. And so of that $100 million or so of allocation that we've made to date, we've been able to successfully leverage through additional state, federal, or regional programs over $400 million of external funds. Next slide, please. So, of the $300 million, $100 million allocated, it would appear we have about $200 million left. However, I think one of the important things we tried to bring forward in October is that the amount of money remaining is not nearly that significant when we consider the agency's state of good repair needs. So state of good repair would be replacing and rehabilitating the capital assets that the agency has and ensuring those needs are met. To date, we use federal funds that pass through to our agency from the region to support this program. As we build more vessels, as we build more infrastructure, as that infrastructure gets more complex, the costs of this program will increase over time. Unfortunately, the funding that's available from the federal government through the region is limited and in high demand. And so as early as next year, we'll need to find additional revenue sources to supplement this program and make sure that our assets remain in the state of good repair. And so the initial cost modeling that we've done says that for the duration of the capital plan, approximately 10 or so years, we may need to set aside up to $150 million of that remaining unallocated RM3 funds to make sure that we are able to preserve the assets that we build over time in a state of good repair. And so in effect, from the previous slide that indicated about $175 to $200 million of that RM3 fund is unallocated. In reality, if we're going to prioritize the state of good repair and make sure those needs are met before additional investment in new capital, that amount is much smaller. Next slide, please. And then, beyond delivering the program at large, beyond managing our remaining RM3 money in a prudent way, there are other risks as well that we have to be cognizant of as we propose a capital program in the near-term future. First of all, funding vulnerability. So we've characterized it as the politicization of existing and future fund sources, and I'll just leave it at that. We are struggling. There are a lot of funds that we've received at the federal level that are potentially in jeopardy, and we need to be mindful. We need to be aware and have contingencies in case the worst possible outcomes in those areas materialize. Increased costs. We've seen industry-wide, so not only for our agencies, but for every other agency that's conducting business in the water transit area, in the shipbuilding area, we've seen increased costs industry-wide for new vessels and infrastructure. Specific to the areas that we're building in within that industry, zero emission technologies, the domestic markets that we're sourcing from are either entirely new or if not new, relatively underdeveloped. And so we're facing increasing costs from both of those factors. We also have an alternate compliance emissions plan with the California Air Resource Board. And this requires that this is our specific plan for meeting the CARB requirements that pertain to the operation of our fleet. So we've made commitments in this plan to CARB, and we have to be mindful that we're realizing those commitments. And if we can't commit them, then we have to find an alternate way to make sure those commitments are met. And then lastly, just in terms of rounding out the challenges and risk faced by the agency, the actual operations of the things that we're proposing to build. We've got some fantastic designs, fantastic engineering inputs that have gone into these vessels that we're proposing to build, the universal charging floats, the float-mounted charging float that you just saw today. We're feeling really confident about the expertise in them, but you never know how it works until it actually starts to operate. And as we get it in, we're going to have a chance to see what really does work, and then also potentially identify areas that, hey, maybe we want to do this a little differently. Maybe there's another approach we can take here to make this even better meet our needs going forward. And so, a risk is seeing how these things actually work before further investing in them. Next slide, please. That said, we do have a preferred path forward. And again, we've met with the subcommittee, Vice Chair Moyer and Director Alba, to review this path forward. And if you go to the next slide, I'd like to kind of run through a few highlights of what this preferred capital plan concept includes. So state of good repair, I think we've covered this on the previous slide. This is going to be prioritized first and foremost among across other investments in the capital program. And so specifically what we're proposing to do is, of the RM3 funds available, setting aside, as I mentioned, in this concept, potentially up to $150 million of those funds to make sure that our rehabilitation and replacement needs are met through year FY 2037. And then beyond that, of the funds that remain, we thought it was really important to take a balanced approach to our investment in the rest of the program. So a balanced approach, as opposed to saying of the electrification, of the expansion, of the enhancement, this one wins, this one loses. We want to deliver on all fronts. We think it's really important, if our longer-term goal is to get to where we want to get to in 2050, that we move all components of the program forward. So to highlight what's included in the plan on each of those fronts, in terms of electrification, we would be proposing to fully deliver the REEF Phase 1 program. So this program includes the construction of 3 new 150-passenger vessels that would support new service to Treasure Island and new service to Mission Bay. REEF Phase 2, the capital plan that we would carry forward in the business plan would assume partial delivery of REEF Phase 2, and really seek to maximize the investment in the assets that are currently underway. So for REEF Phase 2, this would mean the transition of up to 2 existing routes to zero emissions operations. In terms of the other REEF programs, the planning work would continue for the other routes that are included in Phase 2, as well as projects in Phase 3 and 4. However, we're kind of acknowledging that we can't do everything right away, and the delivery of those projects in terms of the capital plan with our understanding of where we're at today, would be deferred to later years. Next slide, please. Beyond electrification, I think the capital plan that we would carry forward does a lot to advance our initiatives in terms of service enhancement and service expansion. For the expansion and enhancement of our fleet, so I noted as part of REEF Phase 1, we would add 3 new 150 passenger vessels that are currently under contract. We recognize that commitment we've made, and we're certainly carrying that forward into the plan. The plan would also include the conversion of some of our existing routes to zero emission, and then the addition of up to 4 new 320 to 400 passenger zero emission vessels that would support either service expansion or service enhancement. In terms of service enhancement, the plan would assume frequency or vessel capacity upgrades on up to 2 routes. And then in terms of planning work, we would continue to monitor the need for an enhancement on the other 4 services that we operate. And then lastly, service expansion. Again, this is really rounding out the balanced approach that we have to this capital plan scenario in terms of what we would carry forward with the vessels that we're delivering and the commitments that would be required through our own expansion policy. This plan would allow us to deliver 75% or 3/4 of the Tier 1 service vision that we have in the 2050 service vision. Again, we've identified other Tier 1 routes in Tier 2. The planning work would continue for those. However, the delivery of those projects wouldn't be included in this plan timeframe. Next slide, please. So again, in terms of managing the risk and challenges, this effort's really an attempt to present a constrained path forward that allows us to continue the success we've had in terms of leveraging the limited RM3 funds we have and securing external funds, but doing that in a way that kind of maintains credibility and sets a reasonable target. And so I think one of the things that's valuable in this slide in terms of what it would take with the remaining funds that we have available from our RM3 and the funds that would be required to deliver each of the capital scenarios listed here, we indicate the leveraging factor. And so of the funds that we have to date, that $115 million, we've leveraged over 400 million. So that's a ratio of about 1 to 2.8. And so this table shows the leveraging factor that would be required in each of those scenarios. And so again, this was really an analysis we did that supported scenario C. We felt, while aggressive, the leveraging factor required to deliver this plan scenario at 4.3 kind of was within the realm of credibility and possibility given what we've done to date. With this plan and any plan, I think it's just really important to note, we know there's going to be uncertainty. We know costs are going to change. We know schedules are going to change. We know new opportunities are going to come up. What we're proposing here is to bring forward what we think we should do in this moment in time. And we're going to build it in, and we would build it into the larger draft business plan that we're going to bring to you in the subsequent months, but certainly acknowledge things will change, and nothing in terms of this concept we're bringing forward is meant to be limiting in any way, and we'll continue to evolve the plan as things do change. Next slide, please. Next slide. So just in terms of next steps for completing the business plan, we're here today to review the concept for the capital plan that we will input into the business plan with you. Over the next couple months, we'll be working with our project consultant, Fair & Peers, as well as our internal staff team to fill out that capital plan, to fill out that operating plan that'll complete volume 2 of the business plan. As early as February or March, we're hoping to bring that draft plan back to the full board for a first reading and potential authorization of release for public comment. And then as early as April of next year, we'd bring the plan forward for final approval. So that's the update of the business plan. Thank you again to the subcommittee for helping us earlier in the month vet the option that we're kind of characterizing here, and I have to answer any questions you have.
Terrific. Thank you, Mike. Very thorough and articulate presentation. Much appreciated. Directors, maybe I'll start with those of us not on the subcommittee. Director Du?
Sure. Thank you, Vice Chair Moyer. And thank you to the committee for the hard work. Being responsible is not always fun and exciting, but it is necessary. And so I appreciate you guys going through that process and making those hard decisions. I did want to say on the planning for the future phases, excuse me, I think it'll be interesting to see. I mean, like, as the technology is changing, I think that there's going to be developments there that could be beneficial to us in the future. And so I think it's probably good that we are having those future phases just in the design and planning phase at the moment and for a few years to come. I mean, just over the last year, like 2024, there was no technology capable of having electric vessels going from San Francisco to Vallejo, but now that technology exists and is possible. So, if that's happening in just a year, what might be happening in the next 5-10 years? So I'm actually pleased to see that that's, we're looking at keeping things more in the planning design phases for longer to come. And then I had a question on, just a comment on the service enhancement frequency or vessel capacity upgrades. I think I would rather see increase in frequency where possible, unless the vessel capacity, the vessels that exist are selling out. Just because I think increasing the frequency is going to increase ridership. And I don't think any of our vessels, unless it's to the games, are selling out right now. So although the 11 o'clock ferry from Vallejo this morning was quite packed, but not sold out by any stretch of the imagination. So that was my only comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Du. Director Henneberry?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for the presentation. Obviously, a lot of hard work and thinking went into this. Of course, we don't know what we don't know, so we'll see what plays out. But thank you. I think it's a good roadmap. Thanks.
Director Alba?
Yeah, I would just agree with my fellow colleagues here on the board. It's wonderful to see. I think this compromise between expansion versus making sure that we have to take care of our existing infrastructure and vessels is so important. State of good repair is always going to take priority. Failing infrastructure and capital assets is not going to help us in any way. So I think that's the right approach. And then using ARM3 as a leveraging factor. The preferred scenario is definitely my preference as well, where we're keeping it in a realistic, where we're optimizing the use of the regional measure funds. And I agree with Director Du that we don't know how fast technology is going to advance over the next few years. And so, as we've seen just today with the contract award to Tritium, there are opportunities out there to make really smart choices if we make them at the right time. And so not rushing into anything that we're going to regret later is important as well. So keep on making the smart choices and really thinking about the long-term viability of our system. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, directors. Mike, thank you as always for the report. And I just want to reiterate the fantastic ways that the work that you've done and the team's done so far and with the input of the stakeholders has benefited the agency and other agencies like MTC and their planning. So that's, if we stop today, the work is well worth it. And for some of the reasons of even the items we voted on today. And it will hopefully continue to evolve. It'd be fun someday to know how many agenda items we've had that is tangential to the work that's been done so far. So I'm really gratified about that. And you know, as having been part of it from the beginning, it's hard not to have my heart set on the full vision and the full plan. And we knew at the time that you know, trying to prognosticate out to 2050 was certainly an exercise in the art of the possible, not the art of the guaranteed. So I appreciate the importance of having this conversation and having some guardrails and having some and managing expectations. I think that's really very, very critical. And I feel very strongly that we have a fiduciary duty to deliver the service that we have today. And it occurred to me while you were presenting and my fellow directors were speaking that we find ourselves in an enviable position to even be having this conversation. While many of our peers are having conversations about just how to survive the current fiscal year, we are talking about, you know, legions of fiscal years. And so thank you all for that. And it underscores why it's so important for this plan to be organic and evergreen, and also to continue to be part of the everyday dialogue and helping to set and guide us. And so I look forward to more to come. Thanks again. Okay, so Melanie, any members of the public that would like to speak?
Nobody has signed up to speak.
Anybody online would like to speak and can't get off Zoom fast enough or off mute fast enough? Take that as a sign of work well done, Mike, wherever you disappeared to. Okay, so that brings us to our final item, which is public comments for non-agendized items. Do you have anybody requesting?
Nobody has signed up to speak.
Okay, and once again, to those of you who've joined us by call, anybody wanting to speak there? Well, seeing none, the meeting is concluded. Thank you all very much.